Why would a woman pretending to hand out water bottles listen to a classified military frequency every night? The radio wasn't supposed to work. Most evenings it spat out nothing but static and distant truck chatter bleeding across the Syrian border. But tonight, the static broke. "Send help now." 3 words thin, fractured, a man forcing calm over fear. Lana Vashchenko froze with a chipped ceramic mug halfway to her lips. The NGO compound around her was quiet, generators humming, wind pushing dust against whitewashed walls, children sleeping in narrow bunks 20 feet away. But in her earpiece, men were dying. Pinned at grid 742, 2 wounded, ammunition low. The voice cut out. Lana set the mug down carefully, not rushed, not panicked, just deliberate. Because panic wastes seconds, and seconds were blood. She wasn't supposed to have access to that frequency. The humanitarian worker with soft eyes and a patient smile wasn't supposed to know encrypted American emergency channels. But Lana wasn't only a humanitarian worker. She had been listening every night for 4 months. Hopping she'd never need to answer. The signal flared again, weaker now. "Anyone on this frequency, immediate support required." Lieutenant Commander Ronan Bellamy. She knew the name. She knew all 4 names. She had memorized their roster when they inserted 6 weeks ago under bad intelligence that she herself had flagged as too clean, too perfect. She had trusted the review board. That mistake was about to cost lives. Lana crossed the small concrete room and knelt beside her cot. Her fingers slipped beneath a loose tile in the floor. The tile lifted. Under it, the truth. A rifle case, suppressed precision platform, sidearm spare magazines, satellite phone. The woman who handed out water bottles did not own those things. But the woman her father raised did. The satellite phone vibrated before she could reach it. "Marcus Chin," she answered quietly. "I'm monitoring the same frequency," her handler said. His voice was calm, but she heard the strain underneath. "Extraction assets are 45 minutes out, minimum." "They don't have 45 minutes. "Silence." "The agency cannot authorize unilateral action," Marcus said carefully. "You understand what I'm saying?" "Yes." If she went alone. No backup, no record, no official existence. If she died, she'd be an aid worker caught in the wrong place. Lana opened the rifle case. Her father's rifle. The metal felt familiar, cold, honest. "How did they get burned?" she asked. "False intelligence. The target never existed. They walked into a prepared ambush. 60 hostiles minimum." 60. 4 SEALs. Her jaw tightened. "Who's running opposition?" Another pause. Kadir Razovi. The name landed heavy. Oxford-educated, strategic, patient. Lost his younger brother in an American strike 2 years ago. Since then, he'd been hunting U.S. assets with obsessive precision. Lana remembered the file. She also remembered the strike. And the name buried deep in the casualty report, Mimud Razovi. Collateral. She loaded the first magazine. Her hands were steady. "Western Ridge?" she asked. "Minimal coverage, 2-hour climb at night." "I'll make it in less." "Lana," Marcus said, voice softening. "Even if you reach position, you're 1 shooter against 60. The math doesn't work." She thought about the voice on the radio. Controlled, professional, fatting. She thought about the 8 Marines who died 2 years ago, when she had trusted protocol instead of instinct. The math never worked. "You do it anyway," she said. She ended the call. Outside, the night was moonless, absolute. She moved past the sleeping quarters quietly, stepping into boots by the door. Her reflection in the glass was unfamiliar now, eyes flat, shoulders squared. The soft-eyed aid worker had disappeared. In her place stood something sharper. The first kilometer was the most dangerous. A militia checkpoint sat 400 meters east, two bored teenagers with rifles and cigarettes. She smiled at them during supply runs. Tonight she cut wide through a drainage ditch that smelled like rot and oil. Her father's voice lived in her head as she moved. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Viktor Vashchenko had defected from Soviet Special Forces before she was born. He traded one war for a ranch in Montana. He tried to give her distance from violence. Instead, he gave her discipline. She cleared the checkpoint and increased her pace. 12 kilometers. Broken terrain. Patrols. 40 fighters between her and the ridge. She moved like she'd been taught at 9 years old, reading stone, memorizing stars, placing each step without sound. At 19, she had walked into a CIA recruitment office the week after burying her father. Heart attack, the doctor said. As if a heart could simply stop carrying secrets. Halfway to the ridge, she dropped flat. Voices ahead. Arabic laughing. The Americans walked straight into it. Razavi promised. She lay still for 7 minutes. Patience is survival. When the patrol passed, she continued. The ridge loomed dark against the horizon. 2-hour climb. She started up. Rock bit into her palms, her lungs burned, sweat cooled in the night air. Halfway up, her earpiece crackled. Break out at dawn, Bellamy's voice, if no support arrives. They knew. They were planning their own deaths. She climbed faster. At the top, she pulled herself over and lay flat for 30 seconds, just breathing. Then she crawled forward. The valley below tightened her chest. A destroyed compound. Elevated firing positions on 3 sides. Technical vehicles mounted with heavy guns. Systematic coverage. It wasn't chaos. It was choreography. Razavi had built a kill box. 4 men huddled behind broken concrete in the center. Pinned. Waiting. Lana unslung the rifle. Her father had once told her, "You must decide what your gift is for." She had never fully answered that. Maybe this was it. She found her first target, a fighter exposed while repositioning. She exhaled. Pressed. The shot echoed across the valley. The man fell. Silence followed. Then shouting. Confusion. Another target. Another breath. Another body. 2 down. Panic rippled through the formation. Below, the SEALs froze. In the compound, Bellamy lifted his head. Who the hell? The radio crackled in Lana's ear. Unknown asset identify. She kept her eye in the scope. Call me Wraith, she said. Cease fire, take cover, let them look for me. You're one shooter, another voice barked. Senior Chief Vance, skeptical, angry. Yes, she said calmly, and I'm about to make that enough. She shifted position. 3 more fighters exposed themselves trying to locate her. 3 more fell. 5, 6, 7. She felt nothing. Not pride. Not fear. Just calculation. Then, a round cracked against stone inches from her head. Counter-sniper. She rolled. New angle, opposite ridge. Professional. So Razavi had insurance. Good. She adjusted. 9 down. 10. She heard Bellamy whisper through the radio, "She's creating a corridor." But she wasn't done. She wasn't even close. Because in the distance, dust trails rose. Reinforcements. Time was bleeding. Her arm trembled from recoil and adrenaline. And somewhere deep inside her chest, something else stirred. Not anger. Not revenge. Responsibility. Because if she didn't move now, 4 men would die believing help never came. She chambered another round. 48 left. And the night was just beginning. Something was wrong. Why would a sniper, who already had the advantage, suddenly stop firing? In the compound below, Lieutenant Commander Ronan Bellamy noticed it first. The valley had erupted in chaos moments ago, precise shots, fighters dropping, militia scrambling for cover, and then silence. No more shots from the ridge. No movement. Just wind pushing dust through broken concrete. He pressed against the shattered wall and keyed his radio. "Wraith, this is Trident 1. Report." "Static." Beside him, Brennan wiped sweat and sand from his eyes. "Sir, did we just lose her?" Bellamy didn't answer. He didn't want to say the thought forming in his head, that whoever had come for them might already be dead. On the ridge, Lana Vashchenko lay flat behind limestone rock, barely breathing. The bullet had struck less than 3 inches from her face. Stone fragments had sliced her cheek, and fine dust filled her mouth. Counter-sniper confirmed. She closed her eyes once, not fear reset. The first shooter she'd faced tonight had been chaos militia fighters reacting. This one was different. He hadn't sprayed. He hadn't rushed. He had waited. Which meant he was watching. She crawled backward slowly, inch by inch, keeping the ridge crest between herself and the opposite slope. A professional sniper didn't look for movement. He looked for patterns. She would give him none. Her radio crackled again. "Wraith, we heard a second shot. You still with us?" Bellamy's voice was controlled, but she heard the concern beneath it. "I'm here," she whispered. "You now have a counter-sniper hunting me. Do not expose yourselves." A long pause followed. Then Vance spoke, gruff but quieter than before. "So our rescue just became a duel." "Yes," Lana said simply. She risked a quick glance through a narrow gap between rocks. The eastern ridge sat across the valley, shadows still clinging to its slopes. Nothing moved. Which was exactly what frightened her. Because patient shooters never rushed a kill. They waited for the other person to make a mistake. She adjusted her position and studied the valley again. 51 fighters remained. Too many. And time was moving. A memory pushed in uninvited. 2 years earlier, another operation, another valley. She had identified a meeting of high-value targets. Her handler had delayed action for confirmation. Confirmation came late. The targets dispersed. 3 weeks later, that same network ambushed a patrol. 8 Marines died. She still remembered the letter sent to one mother. She'd read it by accident during a review file. She died believing her son had help on the way. Lana exhaled slowly. She would not let that happen again. "Trident 1," she said. "I need a distraction. Controlled fire to the eastern side, short bursts." Bellamy didn't hesitate. "You heard her, on my mark." Seconds later, gunfire erupted from the compound. Militia fighters shifted focus instantly, firing toward the seals. Exactly what she needed. She settled the rifle. Target, machine gunner, leaning over sandbags. Trigger press. The man collapsed. 50, she murmured. She shifted to a second, runner moving between vehicles. 49. A third spotter near a mounted gun. 48. Then the rock behind her exploded. The counter-sniper had adjusted. He was fast. Too fast. She rolled away, sliding behind deeper cover as another round snapped past her shoulder. He'd found her angle. Good. Now she knew his approximate location. She listened carefully, no second shot. He was disciplined, waiting for confirmation. "Wraith, Bellamy again." "Still operational," she said, though her heart hammered. "Your distraction worked. Continue conserving ammunition." In the compound, Brennan crouched beside Akafor, pressing bandages against the man's shoulder. blood soaked through anyway. "Sir," Brennan whispered, "she's fighting 60 guys and a sniper alone." Bellamy stared at the ridge. "Then we make sure she's not doing it for nothing." Back on the ridge, Lana repositioned along a narrow rock shelf. Every movement hurt her lungs now, the climb, the cold air, the adrenaline crash hitting. She reached a secondary firing point, offering a new angle into the valley. She had maybe 3 shots before the counter-sniper triangulated again. She took them quickly. A fighter attempting to flank, down. A man manning a truck-mounted weapon, down. Another crouched beside ammunition crates, down. 45. But then she heard it. A voice. Amplified. From the school building in the valley. "Ghost, I know you are up there." Her body went still. English educated, calm. "Kadir Razovi. My men have hunted you for 2 years." His voice echoed across the valley. "Every operation disrupted, every secret leaked, always a woman no one could find." The SEALs exchanged confused glances. Bellamy frowned. "He's not talking to us." Lana felt cold settle in her chest. This wasn't just an ambush. It was a trap for her. "I wondered if you would come," Razovi continued. "And here you are, risking your life for strangers." Her grip tightened on the rifle. "2 years ago," he said, voice harder now, "a missile strike killed my brother, a teacher, a father, and the intelligence that guided it came from you." Silence filled the valley. Even the fighters paused. Bellamy slowly lowered his radio. "Wraith, what is he talking about?" She didn't answer. Because he was right. She had flagged the meeting location. She had marked it as high probability. She had never known who else was in that room. Collateral damage. The phrase felt heavier tonight. Razovi spoke again, softer now. "Surrender, Ghost, walk down the ridge. I will let the Americans go." Brennan looked at Bellamy. Hope flickered across his exhausted face. "Sir, what if he means it?" Vance shook his head immediately. "He doesn't. The moment she shows, he kills all of us." Lana closed her eyes briefly. Her father's voice surfaced in memory. "A person must know what they will die for, and what they will not kill for." She opened her eyes and keyed the radio. "Trident 1, listen carefully. I am not surrendering." Bellamy exhaled slowly. He hadn't realized he'd been holding his breath. "What's your plan?" he asked. "I'm going to remove every fighter between you and the northern Wadi. When I say move, you run." "You're wounded?" he asked quietly. A small pause. "Not yet," she said. She chambered another round. The sun was rising now, light spilling into the valley. Her advantage was shrinking. And she knew Razovi would attack soon. She whispered to herself, steadying her breathing. 30 minutes. 45 enemies. One chance. She found her next target. And fired. A strange thought crossed Lana's mind as the sun cleared the ridge. Why did she feel calmer the closer death moved toward her? The valley was no longer dark. Morning light spilled across rock and sand, stripping away her shadows and her greatest protection. The advantage she had relied on all night was fading minute by minute. Below, fighters dragged bodies into cover. They were no longer panicked. They were adapting. That worried her more than bullets. Because fear made men careless, discipline made them dangerous. She adjusted her rifle against the stone and slowed her breathing. Inhale, hold, release. Through the scope she saw him. Not clearly, just a flicker of unnatural symmetry among the rocks on the eastern ridge. A shape that didn't belong to nature. A small reflection that lasted less than a second. Glass. The counter-sniper. He had found a depression in the rock, giving him 3-sided cover and a clean angle across the valley. He wasn't searching anymore. He was waiting. For her. "Wraith, this is Trident 1. Bellamy whispered through the radio. Movement increasing on all sides. I think they're preparing to rush us. She didn't answer immediately. Her eye remained fixed through the scope. She now knew something important. The other sniper was not trying to scare her away. He was containing her. Razavi didn't want her dead quickly. He wanted her pinned while his men killed the SEALs, which meant she was no longer just a rescuer. She was the center of the battlefield. I need you to trust me, she said quietly. When the assault begins, you collapse your position to the northwest corner of the compound. Vance cut in instantly. That's their strongest staging area. Not for long. You're asking us to turn our backs on half the fighters, Vance replied. Yes. A silence followed. Then Bellamy spoke. We're listening. Lana swallowed dry air and continued. When they move, all their attention will be forward. I'll break their formation from the ridge. You will have one opening, maybe 90 seconds. You run for the wadi north of your position. And you, Brennan asked. She did not answer right away. I'll keep them looking at me. The radio stayed quiet for 3 full seconds. Bellamy understood what she wasn't saying. She wasn't planning an escape. She was planning time. Below, Razavi raised his hand. 30 fighters surged forward. The first wave came fast, spread wide, rifles firing in coordinated bursts. Not a chaotic militia charge, a trained advance. Lana fired 4 times in 6 seconds. 4 men fell. The formation faltered. She shifted position immediately, rolling to a secondary rock and reacquiring targets. Another shot. Another. 7 more dropped before the fighters reached halfway. Gunfire erupted from the compound, but she spoke sharply into the radio. Hold fire, take cover. Bellamy obeyed instantly. The SEALs pulled back behind concrete remains. Now every hostile eye turned toward the ridge. Toward her. Exactly as she intended. The counter-sniper fired. The round slammed into rock beside her shoulder, spraying fragments across her neck. She didn't flinch, she moved, sliding downhill 3 meters before firing again from a lower angle. A fighter behind a truck dropped. 29 remaining, she murmured. But the counter-sniper had learned her rhythm. She saw it, the faint shift in his barrel as he predicted her next firing point. He was good. Very good. Another round cracked past her ribs. Closer. She was out of safe positions. Below, chaos rippled through Razavi's fighters. They no longer advanced. They hid, crawled, fired blindly. Razavi watched from the school doorway, expression tight. His perfect trap was dissolving 1 precise bullet at a time. He lifted a loudspeaker again. You cannot save them, he called toward the ridge. You will only die with them. Lana ignored him. Her arm trembled slightly from recoil and fatigue. She flexed her fingers once and steadied the rifle. Then the counter-sniper fired again. This time the bullet tore through her left arm. The impact spun her sideways. She hit the ground hard, breath leaving her lungs in a silent gasp. For a second, the world shrank into soundless white. Pain followed sharp electric, spreading from shoulder to wrist. She clamped her teeth together and dragged herself behind a rock. Blood soaked her sleeve quickly. Through and through. No bone. Still usable. Her radio erupted. Wraith, we heard that shot report. She forced her voice steady. Flesh wound, I'm operational. A lie. But necessary. Because hope was now part of their survival. Below, 6 fighters reached grenade range of the compound. Northwest corner, she ordered. The SEALs shifted position, dragging the wounded Akafir with them. She forced herself upright, braced the rifle one-handed against the rock and fired. 1 fighter fell. She adjusted. Second dropped. Third. The remaining three hesitated, caught between advancing and hiding. Bellamy seized the moment. Move, move. The SEALs began retreating toward the wadi. Lana shifted aim to cover them. Every step they took, she matched with a shot. A man emerging behind a wall, down. Another sprinting toward them, down. Her wounded arm shook violently now. Each recoil sent fire through her shoulder, but she kept firing. Because she could hear Brennan's breathing over the radio, strained under Akhafer's weight. He was only a kid. 24. Too young to die in a foreign valley. Then she saw motion on the eastern ridge. The counter-sniper. He had stood to get a better angle. For the first time, their scopes aligned directly. 600 meters apart. Two shooters. No cover. No time. She saw his eye behind the glass. Calm, focused, patient. He squeezed. She fired first. Her bullet struck his shoulder, spinning him backward. His shot went wide across empty sky. Not a kill, but enough. She exhaled slowly. Counter-sniper neutralized temporarily, she transmitted. Below, the SEALs reached the wadi entrance. But then, shouting. Three hidden fighters emerged near the escape route. One grabbed Brennan, forcing him to his knees with a pistol to his head. Everything stopped. Lana froze. The fighter pressed the gun tighter against Brennan's temple. Razavi's voice echoed again across the valley. Drop your weapon, Ghost, or the boy dies. Her finger rested on the trigger. Distance, 170 meters. Visible target, less than 8 inches. Her wounded arm trembled. If she missed, Brennan died instantly. If she didn't act, they all died. Wraith, Brennan said quietly over the radio, voice shaking but brave. Take the shot. Her father's voice echoed in memory. You must decide what your gift is for. For the first time all night, Lana hesitated. Not from fear. From responsibility. The rifle felt heavier than it ever had before. And she realized something painful in that moment. Saving lives sometimes required risking one she could see. Her breathing slowed. The valley held its breath with her. And she made her decision. How do you pull a trigger when the life you might take is the one you're trying to save? Lana didn't move. Through the scope she could see Brennan's eyes wide, locked forward, trying not to blink as the pistol pressed into his temple. The fighter holding him stood half behind his shoulder, using him as a shield. Only a narrow slice of face and wrist remained visible. A shot like that wasn't skill. It was acceptance. Wind brushed the ridge, drifting left to right across the valley. Weak, but enough to matter. Her wounded arm trembled against the rifle stock, muscles struggling to hold steady. Blood had soaked into the sleeve and dried, tightening the fabric against her skin. Wraith, Bellamy whispered over the radio, barely audible. He wasn't giving an order, he was giving permission. Brennan spoke again, voice calmer now. Ma'am, it's okay. She felt something tight inside her chest. He trusted her. Not because she was the best shot. Because he believed she wouldn't abandon him. Her father's memory surfaced again, not a lecture this time, but a simple moment. A cold morning in Kiev, a small rifle range, her hands shaking the first time she held a target rifle. You don't shoot to prove you're strong, he had told her gently. You shoot because someone needs you to be steady. Her breathing slowed. Inhale. Half exhale. Hold. The world narrowed until the valley disappeared. There was no militia, no mountains, no war, only the alignment of front sight, rear sight, and consequence. The fighter shifted slightly. She fired. The rifle cracked across the valley. For a fraction of a second, nothing changed. Then the pistol dropped from the fighter's hand. He collapsed sideways before Brennan even realized what had happened. The bullet had entered just beneath the man's eye. Brennan stayed frozen on his knees, unable to process it. Bellamy grabbed him and pulled him behind the rocks. "Move now." The seals dragged Okafor and disappeared into the wadi path. Lana lowered the rifle slowly. Her arm finally gave out and she collapsed onto her side, breathing hard. The shot had taken everything she had left in her muscles. But she didn't feel relief. She felt quiet. Not victory. Just quiet. Her radio crackled loudly. "We're in the wadi," Bellamy said. "You did it, you saved us." She closed her eyes briefly. Not yet. Because Razavi was still alive. Below, the remaining fighters were no longer coordinated. Some ran toward the hills. Others fired randomly toward the ridge in panic. The structure of command had fractured. But then she saw him. Razavi stepped into the open courtyard alone. No weapon raised, no attempt to hide. He looked directly toward her ridge position, as if he could see her without the scope. "You stayed," he called out. His voice no longer carried anger, only certainty. "You could have escaped in the night, but you stayed for them." She didn't respond. He continued, quieter now, though the wind carried his words faintly. "You wanted redemption." Her grip tightened on the rifle. She centered the crosshair on his chest. Distance, 420 meters. Easy shot. One squeeze and the entire battle would end. But her finger didn't move. Because she heard something else. Behind him, movement. A young boy, maybe 10 years old, emerging from the school doorway, terrified, clutching a cloth bag. Razavi hadn't noticed him yet. The boy ran toward him. If she fired now, the bullet would pass through Razavi and strike the child behind him. Her breathing stopped. Razavi saw the boy and gently pulled him beside his leg, shielding him instinctively. The rifle felt heavier than before. War didn't give clean endings. The radio came alive again, Vance this time. "We've reached the extraction point. Helicopter is inbound in 6 minutes. We need you to move." 6 minutes. She looked back at Razavi through the scope. He knew she was there, and he wasn't hiding. For 2 years she had hunted him. Every intercepted message, every ruined operation, every life lost afterward had pointed back to this man. The man who had built networks that caused ambushes, bombings, and executions. Ending him could save many future lives. But not at the cost of the one standing beside him. Razavi slowly placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. Almost protective. And in that moment, she saw something she didn't expect. He wasn't a monster. He was a man who believed he was right. Just like soldiers often did. The realization hurt more than her wound. She exhaled and moved the crosshair away from his chest. She couldn't take the shot. Seconds passed. Razavi gave a faint, almost respectful nod toward the ridge, as if he understood her choice. Then he turned and disappeared back inside the school with the child. Lana lowered the rifle. Her mission was complete. But her war was. She forced herself to stand, gripping rock with her good arm. Every movement sent pain across her body. The adrenaline was gone now, leaving only exhaustion and cold. She began descending the ridge slowly. Each step felt heavier than the last. Halfway down, her vision blurred. She stumbled, caught herself, kept moving. Her radio crackled weakly. "Bird is here," Bellamy said. "Where are you?" She tried to answer, but her voice barely came out. "On the slope." Her legs gave way again, and she slid several meters down gravel and stone before stopping against a boulder. The sky above her looked strangely bright. For the first time all night, she allowed herself to stop fighting. Not because she wanted to. Because her body no longer listened. Helicopter blades echoed faintly in the distance. She smiled slightly. They were safe. That was enough. Her eyes closed, and for a moment, she wondered if redemption wasn't about erasing the past, but about choosing mercy when no one would ever know you did. Why did the helicopter medic keep asking her to stay awake when she couldn't even feel the cold anymore? Sound returned first. A distant chopping rhythm in the sky, metal vibration, voices layered over each other, someone shouting coordinates, someone praying, someone repeating her name even though she had never told them what it was. Lana opened her eyes halfway. The world tilted above her, pale morning sky framed by the silhouette of a helicopter door. The downdraft pushed dust across her face, but she barely reacted. Her body felt detached, as if she were listening to someone else's pain from far away. Hands gripped her vest. "Easy, easy, she's conscious," a medic said. She was lifted onto a stretcher. Every movement sent deep waves of pain through her shoulder and ribs, yet it felt distant, delayed. Shock had begun its quiet work. Bellamy leaned into her view as they loaded her into the helicopter. His face was streaked with dirt and fatigue, but his eyes held something steadier. "You're not allowed to disappear after that," he said softly. "You hear me?" She tried to answer. Only a faint breath came out. The helicopter rose, and the valley shrank beneath them. For the first time, she saw what she had done. Bodies scattered across open ground, burned trucks, abandoned rifles. The compound where the SEALs had been trapped now looked small, almost insignificant compared to the mountains around it. So much violence, so much consequence, and none of it felt like victory. Her gaze drifted, unfocused. The medic pressed gauze into her arm wound. "Stay with me. What's your name?" She hesitated. The pause was not confusion. It was choice. "Lana," she whispered. The medic nodded. "All right, Lana, you're going to be fine." She wasn't sure she believed him. The helicopter interior blurred as exhaustion deepened. The vibration became distant, almost soothing, and memory slipped in where consciousness weakened. A different helicopter. Years ago. Different uniforms, different mission. She remembered watching a screen surveillance footage from a drone feed. A compound marked as a meeting point. Men entering and exiting. Her analysis concluding, high-value militant gathering. She remembered recommending a strike. She also remembered the after report. One of the men had been a school teacher visiting his brother. Razevi's brother. Collateral damage. She had never forgotten the image of the small courtyard afterward, overturned chairs, dust, and a child's backpack near a wall. She had told herself intelligence work was numbers, probabilities, prevention. But numbers had names, and names had families. Her eyes opened slightly again. Bellamy still sat across from her, watching to make sure she remained conscious. "You stayed," he said quietly. "You didn't have to." Her lips moved slowly. "I did." He didn't understand yet. Neither did his men. To them, she was a rescuer. To herself, she was balancing a debt. The medic inserted an IV line into her arm. Cool fluid spread through her veins, pulling her further from awareness. "Stay awake," the medic insisted. "Talk to me. Why were you even monitoring that valley?" Her eyelids lowered. "Because I was listening for a ghost of my own making," she thought. But she couldn't say it aloud. Instead she whispered, "I was late once. I didn't want to be late again." Bellamy leaned forward slightly. "Late." Her eyes met his, unfocused but honest. "I had a chance to stop something, and I waited for certainty," she murmured. "People died." The helicopter hummed around them. Bellamy didn't reply right away. Because soldiers understood that sentence better than anyone. No one carried, only the missions they completed. They carried the ones that slipped through. Her breathing slowed. The medic checked her pulse again. "She's fatting, keep her talking." Bellamy hesitated, then said, "You know, Brennan won't stop talking about you." A faint reaction crossed her face. "He's alive. Because of you." A small exhale left her lips. Relief, quiet and genuine, softened the tension in her expression for the first time. Not triumph. Not pride. Relief. The helicopter turned toward the forward operating base visible on the horizon. Sunlight filled the cabin now, bright and warm, yet she shivered. Shock tightened around her awareness like a closing door. "Stay awake," the medic repeated urgently. Lana forced her eyes open once more. "Did he live?" she asked weakly. Bellamy frowned. "Who?" She barely formed the word. "The boy." Bellamy paused. He realized then, even wounded, even barely conscious, she wasn't thinking about the enemy leader she had spared. She was thinking about the child standing behind him. He nodded gently. "Yes, we saw them leave the building before we extracted. He lived." Her eyes closed again. This time her breathing eased. Her body relaxed in a way it hadn't all night. Not because she survived. Because the choice she made had not taken an innocent life. The helicopter landed. Medics rushed her out, voices urgent and focused. Doors swung open. Bright lights flooded her vision. Hands transferred her from one stretcher to another. Somewhere in the chaos, she heard Bellamy speaking to a senior officer. "She saved 6 of my men," he said firmly. "Single-handedly held off an entire force." But Lana didn't hear the praise. Her thoughts drifted into darkness, softer now. She remembered her father cleaning his old rifle at the kitchen table long ago. He never spoke about the conflicts he had seen, but once he told her something she didn't understand as a child. "The hardest part of war is not pulling the trigger," he had said. "It is living with the reasons you did and the reasons you didn't." As anesthesia finally took her, one last thought passed gently through her mind. Maybe redemption wasn't earned in the moment you saved someone. Maybe it began in the moment you refused to become someone you could no longer recognize. When she opened her eyes again, the war was gone. At least that was how it felt. No gunfire. No radios. No dust-filled wind scraping across stone. Only a quiet white ceiling and the soft rhythmic beep of a monitor beside her bed. For a few seconds she didn't remember where she was. Her body felt heavy, wrapped in stillness. The pain had dulled into a deep ache, distant and controlled. Then memory returned all at once. The ridge. The boy. The shot she didn't take. Her hand moved slightly, and she felt bandages around her arm and shoulder. Tubing ran from her wrist. Sunlight slipped through a hospital window onto the floor. She had survived. But survival didn't bring relief the way stories said it would. It brought weight. The door opened quietly. Bellamy stepped inside. No helmet now. No rifle, just a tired man in a wrinkled uniform who looked like he hadn't slept since the valley. He stopped when he saw her awake. "You took your time," he said gently. Her voice was rough. "How long?" 3 days. She absorbed that silently. 3 days where the world had kept moving without her. 3 days where decisions she made were already becoming reports, files, statistics. "My team?" she asked. "All alive," he answered. "Akafor's surgery went well. Brennan refuses to leave the base until he sees you himself." A faint, almost invisible smile appeared on her face, then faded. "And Razovi?" Bellamy hesitated. "Gone," he said. "Our surveillance lost him after the extraction. He disappeared into civilian areas. No engagement." She looked toward the window. She had expected that answer. War rarely gave complete endings. Bellamy pulled a chair beside the bed and sat. For a moment he didn't speak, studying her with quiet curiosity. "You had the shot," he finally said. "We reviewed drone footage, clean angle, clear wind. Every analyst agreed it was a guaranteed kill." She didn't respond. He continued softly, not accusing, trying to understand. "You saved us. You fought an entire force alone. But when it came to him, you lowered the rifle." A long silence settled between them. Finally she spoke. "There was a child behind him." Bellamy nodded once. "I know." Her eyes stayed on the light falling across the floor. "I marked a building once," she said quietly. "Years ago, intelligence assessment, high probability target. I waited for confirmation but not long enough." Her voice didn't shake. That made it heavier. "A man died who wasn't supposed to. His family was there. I told myself it was unavoidable, that numbers justified it." She swallowed. "War teaches you to measure outcomes, but you don't measure outcomes when you look into a child's eyes." Bellamy said nothing, because there was nothing a soldier could say to undo a memory like that. "I could end Razavi," she continued. "Maybe save future lives, or I could ensure one innocent didn't die in front of me." She finally looked at him. "I don't know if it was the right tactical decision." A quiet pause. "But it was the only decision I could live with." Bellamy leaned back slightly, exhaling. "You know," he said, "every report about that valley calls you a hero." She shook her head faintly. "No, not denial. Certainty. A hero wins," she said softly. "I only chose what I wouldn't regret tomorrow." Footsteps approached the hallway. The door opened suddenly and Brennan stepped in, arm bandaged but very much alive. He froze when he saw her awake. For a second he looked like the young man he actually was, not the hardened operator he tried to be. "You're okay," he said, almost in disbelief. She studied him quietly, making sure. "Yes." He stepped closer to the bed, struggling for words. "I thought when he grabbed me, I thought that was it." She understood, no explanation needed. He looked down briefly, then back at her. "You didn't miss," he said. Her answer came gently. "I almost did." He shook his head. "No, you didn't." There was gratitude in his voice, but also something else. Respect. Not for the shot. For the person who chose to take it. Later, after they left and the room grew quiet again, Lana watched evening settle outside the window. The sky shifted to amber, then violet. For the first time in years, her mind wasn't replaying calculations or satellite images. It replayed a small moment instead. A boy running across a courtyard. Alive. She understood something now she hadn't before. War never truly balanced its scales. No operation erased the past. No mission could repay every loss. Redemption wasn't a single act of courage. It was a direction. A choice repeated when no one was watching, when reports wouldn't record it, when history wouldn't know it happened. She rested her head back against the pillow, breathing steady. Somewhere out there, Razavi still lived. Somewhere out there, future dangers still waited. And someday she would return to the field, not because she loved conflict, but because she understood its cost. Her father had been right. The hardest thing was not learning when to fire. It was learning when not to. Outside the window, night settled peacefully. And in the quiet, she finally allowed herself to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time. Not pride. Not relief. Peace. Because sometimes courage is loud. But sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.